It recognizes our belief in God, our country, not just individuals, our country, our founding fathers codified this in the documents that founded this country. Our reliance, our belief in God, and our reliance upon God. Of that, there's just no debate on that. You may like it, may not like it. Declaration of Independence, we find these truths to be self-evident, that we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, of which are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. He goes on in the Constitution to say we are putting together this Constitution in a preamble to secure the blessings, not only for ourselves, for posterity. And that Constitution followed with a Bill of Rights that enumerated those godly rights given to man, including the very first one, which was a right to believe in God and to express that belief anytime, anywhere, including the public square.
33 million. It's proven to the money investors that people want something to feed their souls, not just their worst desires.
Absolutely.
And
yes, indeed.
This kind of sums up my entire dialogue career on the heat of the night. You ready for this? Okay, this is it. My 7 years on the heat of the night. My dialogue all summarized into this. Get right on it, Chief.
Skinner, but Bubba's my name. I like my iced tea sweet and my women the same. I'm your brown-haired badge here in little old Sparta, but nobody's bigger or tougher or smarter. If you're looking to fight, best not be with me. Gonna be held tight, well now we'll just see. You never know in the heat of the night on TNT. Heat of the night on TNT. Now I don't put on any airs, but then I ain't no slob. Just a redneck boy with a blue-collar job. The ladies I date, they gonna have them some fun, cause I'm a big hunk of crime fighting son of a gun. So if you're looking to fight, come on up in the ring. You wanna be held tight, just about anything. And it happen in the heat of the night on TNT. Heat of the night on TNT. Yeah.
The most realistic artificial grass in the Central Valley.
From NFL quarterback to Hollywood to the mayor's office, and now behind the mic at KXEX, this is the Alan Autry Show. No retreat.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
What the hell's going on out here? Everybody grabbing out there. Nobody. That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
So, 5 seconds left in the game. You believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
You're listening to the Alan Autry Show on the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX.
And welcome to Alan Autry No Retreat. Thoroughly thunderous, thrilling Thursday. here, and very hot. Starting to heat up here in the Central Valley. I don't know if it's going to break 100 today, but by Sunday it's supposed to be up to 110 degrees. I don't know why I act surprised or why I'm talking about it. I mean, I live in Fresno, have most of my life in San Joaquin Valley, and it's hot here. So why do constantly every summer go, man, it's hot outside? Well, Captain Obvious has spoken again here on the show. But it does seem to get hotter as I get older. It's one of those things there. You know, like the weights in the weight room, the gym get heavier. A 25-pound dumbbell, it seems to get just heavier as I get older. Just one of those enigmas that I can't quite figure out. Okay, Jeremy's got on social media there. I still don't have an image, so I can't. Folks, I'm going to try to follow your comments today. I'm sure you have a few on the Supreme Court decision, but anyway, I don't see it flowing here on my Facebook page. We'll try to fix that glitch here, and I'll get to some of your questions. Okay, Supreme Court, if you haven't heard, has overturned affirmative action. So let's talk about that before my brethren on the left, my woke and liberal friends, get their panties too much in a wad. Let's talk in depth of what really happened today with that decision. A lot of misinformation. First of all, it wasn't a law. It was an executive order decades ago, meant to help balance out the lack of participation in the American dream of African Americans and people of color in general, in particular, higher education, the colleges, and even more particular, some of those tough to get into institutions where the entrance requirements were very high. Yeah, the Ivy League schools, USC, all over the country where you had a very high standard, and they wanted to balance that out. The theory being there's a whole bunch of people of color who would be able to pass that exam and are just being left out because of their color. So it went into effect, and here, all these years later, it's getting mixed reviews at best. And there was some surprising data that goes along with the decision today, which really wasn't a surprising decision. A lot of people saw this coming on the right and left, and there seemed to be kind of a stark lack of discussion. There wasn't the frothing in the mouth attacks on the possibility of the Supreme Court doing what they did today, which is overturn affirmative action and saying it was unconstitutional to base something solely on race, that you get this job or you go to this institution above someone else because of your race. Martin Luther King pointed this out. That was what was done. White people getting the privilege at jobs. So the theory was if you can make two wrongs, make a right. And that always struck people of that had logic and common sense and a core of fairness wrong. They didn't see how to flip that and prejudice against somebody of another color in order to balance out the field in behalf of a race that had been enslaved for hundreds of years. Now, the 20 acres and a mule that was promised to every slave that was freed, that never materialized. That's a legitimate beef. I feel that this country needs to take a look at because they didn't follow through on that promise to the slaves. Again, that was not by law, that was by a decree, but still it was an official, the government, with, forget the fellow's name and the body he represented, but it was very well respected and made the statement, here's what we're going to give you. Never came through. So you're left with trying, how do you level the playing field? How do you help a race of people who are starting 400 years behind the starting line where everybody else got to start from? It's like, okay, Emancipation Proclamation, you're free. Oh, you had all these folks uneducated, not able to navigate society in a way that was necessary to climb the ladder of opportunity. those are legitimate things to consider when you're talking about slavery and the plight of the African American people in America. But was affirmative action the solution? Was affirmative action even part of the solution? Well, we're getting some amazing data now that kind of turns on the ear these, what I call them hate merchants and race merchants that want to use this action to any talk about overturning affirmative action before it happened today as being racist. You're a racist white dude that want to keep black people oppressed if you have a few questions about the efficacy of affirmative action. Well, the Pew Research folks in Monmouth, two very respected polling firms, did a poll, and last night, I'm watching it before this happened today, on CNN, which I give them credit, usually a poll that would show what this Pew poll and Monmouth poll showed. Both of those polls coincided with the outcome of their poll. And it was very surprising to the panel. Dana Bash, they had one Republican there, African American, give them credit for that, an African American Republic, kind of an endangered species on the liberal networks. You find a black articulate Republican they put on there. That's finding a needle in a haystack. They're out there in tons, believe me, but they don't get invited too often to speak on CNN, never on MSNBC. But he was on there doing a really good job of giving a conservative view on things. But they show the results of the poll. And what's the percentage, do you think, of black people polled in this poll believe that race should be the criteria for being admitted into a college? What do you think it was? 80%? No? 75%? Oh, come on, at least 60%. No? Oh, gee, man. Trust me, you're kidding me. Only 50%? 47%. A little less than half of the African American, the black folks that were polled, said that race should be the determinant factor in letting someone get into college. That astounded the panel. It didn't astound me, because on this show we've talked about there's something happening in the African American community across the country. And yes, even inside the urban core, that voting bloc that the left thinks I hate to use this word because it's such a trigger word in a conversation like this, but I don't know any other word that comes to mind that describes the situation other than own the vote of the black folk in the urban core. They literally think they own these folks and own their minds. They own who they're going to vote for. And I don't think that's an overstatement. And apparently, many, many black folks are starting to feel the same. They're starting to figure this out. They're starting to say, wait a minute, you told me welfare and food stamps was going to be the road to prosperity. That was just going to be my on-ramp to owning my own business, where I wouldn't have to get by on a handout from the government. Or you've created an addiction to this system, and we're seeing it. And by the way, why is my child trapped in a school simply because of their zip code? They happen to be in the poorest part of Baltimore, which is predominantly black, and my kid can't go to that school that's successful over in that other neighborhood that's predominantly white. My kid has to stay in this failing school, riddled with bad teachers that can't teach, and violence on campus that I'm afraid to send my kid there. And you mean if I want to homeschool them, I don't get the ADA? I have to go to that school. My kid has to go there. That sounds like somewhat plantation-esque to me. These conversations have been happening around the dinner table in black homes for a long, long time. And this is bad, bad news for this radical woke left and I've since decades I've been speaking about this. Because the old adage, you say it and people look at you. Yeah, you're a racist when you say, some of my best friends are black. Well, you know what? Some of my best friends are black. Call me what you want. I grew up in the cotton fields out there. It was equal opportunity cotton. I picked cotton, mom picked cotton, black family picked cotton, Hispanic family picked cotton, and we drank out of the same water jug when we ran out of water. And when you drink at the end of the day, and they got that warm water down the bottom of that red and white jug, and some of you who worked in the fields know what I'm talking about. You just throw any racial prejudice out the window. You're all poor. You're all working cotton fields, and you have conversations, and you realize how much more you have in common than you don't. And the color of your skin is the last thing you look at. I can honestly say, my Tommy, my little buddy, 10-year-old buddy that I played with out in the field, I never looked at him and go, there's a black kid. We played in that cotton. We picked the cotton. I don't think he looked at me and said, there's my little white buddy. We were just buddies playing out in the cotton field, watching our moms pick cotton to make ends meet for our dads who were out working the fields. So when you grow up there and grow up like that, and then you tell me that I was born an oppressor and he was born oppressed, and there's no way you can escape that. And if you don't see color, you're a racist. That's what they've been shoving down the throat of all of us, including the African-American families, for the last 5 years. So this depth of understanding, this revelation in the black families has accelerated the last 3-4 years, actually about 5 years with this CRT, this critical race theory. Black families don't like that anymore than white families or Asian families or Hispanic families. This stereotype. I mean, in that study, here's another thing that came out. I think it was 47% believed, a black folks poll believed that race should be the determinant in getting in college, the sole determinant. You have to be balanced. You have to have a quota. You got to have equity, not equality, equity of outcome. Okay, 47%. White liberals, 57% of white liberals believe that should be the sole criteria. Now, what does that say to you, folks? Well, I'll tell you what it says to me. I nod my head saying, well, the numbers don't lie. There you have it. White liberals telling black people what they need, what they should think. And you can bet your bottom dollar you're going to see a white panel of liberals trying to brainwash black folks saying, this is a racist decision. If you think race shouldn't be the sole factor, you need, as Joe Biden is saying, you ain't black. If you're not against this Supreme Court decision, you ain't black. That's what they're going to be telling folks tonight, all over the media. And you know what? Ain't going to work. Because you know what? You folks really, the curtain's being pulled back. When you don't have school choice, when you purposely get people addicted on food stamps and welfare because you want to buy their vote forever, you don't care about the kids. You don't care about them. You don't care about them, starting out working for the man, but have a pathway to be the man or the woman to own the business. It's not a priority. Why? Because they would be independent thinkers. And they start thinking, hey, I got to keep my business going, and you're taxing the living crap out of me, and I can't stay in business. I'm going to take a look at those conservative principles about lower taxation. That's the woke left's worst nightmare. And this is, Thomas Sowell pointed out, let's dig a little bit deeper into this, because he was talking about this anti-affirmative action for years. Those of you who don't know Thomas Sowell, I think he's one of the most brilliant men in my lifetime that I've ever heard, read his books, wrote many, many books. And he's an economist by trade. He's like 93 years old now. Works out of the Hoover Institute. Doesn't get out much anymore. He's gotten up there in age. But go on YouTube and look at some of his lectures. Listen to some of his lectures. He's just outstanding. But he spends a lot of time talking about the negative impact on black families of affirmative actions. And one of the points he makes is about the college entrance exams. Okay, so hold on to Thomas Sowell there. I'm going to come back to him in just a second, and I'm going to tie it to my own personal experience. Like we all tend to relate whatever happens to our own life experience in some way. The thing that came to mind today, again, was when I was in high school, I didn't do good in school. We moved 6 times in 5 years. School was hard, and sometimes really, really hard. I was average intelligence, just a normal kid. But my mind wandered in class, especially when we got into math. I'm thinking about football practice, and they're talking about the principles of pi r square, and I'm saying, no, pi r round. I ate one last night. I mean, it was just that I just didn't take to school. History, I liked some, probably better than any of the other classes. But geometry, science. Shoot, I didn't want to go in there and dissect a frog. That's what we had to do. We had to dissect a frog. I looked at the poor frog, man. I could go out and gig them, but I didn't sit and dissect them after I gigged them. Kind of figure that out. I guess anyway. Bottom line, I was just not a good student. Now, on the flip side, there was our tight end on our football team, a black kid named Ulysses S. Grant. Yes, that was his name. His brother Joe Grant. They named him Ulysses S. Grant. Ulysses was a whiz in the classroom. He was a whiz, man. Math, great at math, great at science, great singer. Yeah, he used to sing at our assemblies, and a really good tight end, and just a gentle giant. He's about 6'2", 230. So you had kind of the polar opposite of me. He paid attention in class, I did. So if we were both going to apply at, say, Harvard, they have a high standard of admissions, okay? Academically, Ulysses would hit that. I wouldn't, okay? If I would have gotten into Harvard, okay, say they flipped it around, I had Native American to me, or just flip the thing. Okay, we're going to balance it out. We're a predominantly black university. We're going to let some white kid in here now to balance it out. Just flip that narrative, that little scenario. Put that in your mind just for the sake of this conversation. And I got in there. So they let me in to balance it out. I would have flunked out the first semester because getting into college is just one thing. Being able to perform in college and pass the tests, to do the study that's required, the rigor to stay in Harvard is very, very challenging. I would flunk out. Well, Thomas Sowell pointed this out. He said Harvard, Columbia, all these folks are letting black kids in, but they're not weighing their achievement, their SAT tests, their GPAs. They're just saying if you're black, because they wanted to reach the quota, they wanted to be looked at as non-racist, and we're going to show people we love black folk. So we're going to let first come, first serve to get their quota, so they didn't have to fool with it. They had a quota to let 100 black kids in. First 100 to come in, you get in. Well, here's the problem that Thomas Sowell pointed out. Out of those 100, well over half wound up flunking out. They would have thrived, as Thomas Sowell said, like I would have thrived at a different university, University of Pacific, where I got to grow into my potential. But you wound up hurting black people because they were put in a situation because they weren't judged on their merit and their achievement and their GPAs and their SAT scores. They were given this pass, and it wound up hurting them more than help them, starting way back. Why? Because they felt that they had failed. Then the data comes out. All right, you let 100 in because the data is the data, and you say over half of the black people flunked out. So that gets out, well, black people must not be able to achieve like white people, which is an absolute lie. So Thomas Sowell pointed that out. What was he called? Racist, a white racist, an Uncle Tom, all that stuff. And what you're finding out now is that black people are more concerned with what the system, how the system is constructed to give black kids the same academic skills taught to them to allow them to get in on merit. They have black people have a deep, I know enough black people in my life to know, they have a deep sense of fairness, just like every other American, Asian, white, Native American, that in most of us have an innate sense of fairness.
And they knew affirmative action, as written, as practiced in America, was fundamentally unfair. They didn't want to so-called benefit from that unfairness. They said, what we want you to do is fix the public schools that my kid went to, who was failed forward. They didn't teach him to read, didn't teach him to write, didn't teach him or her to do math. And then I find my kid in high school, a sophomore, a junior, that can't read at a 7th grade level. You didn't fix it. You didn't put the top teachers at my kid's school. You had this dances of the lemons, so the worst teachers ended up in the most challenging schools, which are mostly African-American and poor neighborhoods in the inner city. And the black folk are waking up going, wait a minute. You either fix this system and make sure there's discipline on the classroom. If some kid comes there with a gun or wants to fight or grab my kid on the way home and beat him up, you throw him in a juvenile hall. You make sure that teacher that's teaching him is a quality teacher that can actually teach the subject and make sure my kid's school has a staff loaded with those kind of teachers, just like the successful school in the other neighborhoods who are predominantly white. So that's what they want. They just want a fair shot. They want equality, not equity, not the equal outcome. Okay, we'll let you apply at Harvard and Columbia, and for equity's sake, we'll let you get in. But once you get in, you're not going to lower the standards on the test. They're trying to do that. But you do that, you run into other constitutional issues. So that's what I think. And I think Thomas Sowell opened my eyes on all this. And that's why you're seeing the numbers that you're seeing. You're seeing black families, especially mamas, but daddies too, saying, you know what? We're not buying this load of crap anymore. Our kids are not being served well. We're being taken advantage of by being trapped in schools that are not working. You're continuing to tell us to be happy with the public assistance, and then that's going to be coming forever. And we'll just, when the cost of living comes up, we'll just make sure you get that COLA increase. And you put all the public assistance together, it's not enough to be able to achieve the American dream. It's not enough to live. Have you seen rents lately? Have you tried to put some gasoline in your car lately? Have you bought groceries lately? I tell you, they have poked the African American bear once too often. And they are absolutely, meaning this crazy, and I'll call it racist, woke left liberal ideology that black folk just don't quite measure up. Let's just keep them trapped in schools that don't work. Let's keep them hating white people. Let's keep them divided out there and yelling at each other. Let's just keep that going. Let's stoke the anger, and let's just ballot harvest the crap out of them come election time. And then we're in power. They're not. They're still getting the same. They're getting the same. I defy any black family or any white family. Tell me where you're going to get some of this infrastructure money. They've already shot their wad with the COVID money. You got your check. That's it. You're not going to see any of that. Why? That's money to pay back cronies that own big nonprofits that sit around and study an issue for 20 years and do nothing. That's where hundreds of billions of these dollars went. And if you're a beneficiary that can be tracked back to the infrastructure investment, great. But you know who's going to benefit? That heavy equipment operator who already has the job. Where's the school that's going to train folks to drive that heavy equipment? That isn't in there. And you talk about the ethnicity that was hit so hard by COVID. More percentage of black people died from COVID than any other ethnic group, percentage-wise. Okay, how much in that infrastructure? And many of those with COVID that were colored could not get into an ICU unit. They basically had to die at home. Hospitals were crowded, overcrowded, couldn't get in there. Well, where's the money in the infrastructure bill to build more ICU units on hospitals? Did you hear that mentioned? It devastated the African American community. African American community and everybody else would benefit from more ICU units. Didn't you see it? Hospital expansion? So you don't have to wait 6 hours, if that, when you're sitting there in that waiting room. Mostly people of color. Where's the money to go to ease that load, that health burden on African Americans. Not in there. So all of this this big con game that's been played on the African American community by the ultra liberal left and those on the right who just didn't bark loud enough. You just got tired of calling it out and you quit on your African American brethren. Shame on you. Shame on you, because it costs you something to keep speaking out. And you say, well, I've spoken out on it so much and nothing's happening, so I'm going to give up. And yeah, I heard Ryan Seacrest is hosting Jeopardy, so I'm just going to start watching that. But I tell you, these numbers did not surprise me. I think this is the beginning of could be this Supreme Court decision. I feel could be the beginning, with the support of many, many, many black folk in this country, to creating real reform that'll create real fairness, that will create a real pathway to the American dream for everyone, including our African American brothers and sisters. Okay, we want to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to try to explain this Hunter Biden deal. I know you heard about it. It's important. Guillermo thinks I'm beating it like a dead horse. Well, yeah, I am, because that dead horse is a very dangerous horse. Because you let it rot there, it's going to poison everybody. We have to look at this, stay on it, and there's some amazing developments that have happened just recently, and we're going to talk about them when we come right back. Jeremy, we still don't have the image up. Did I mess up? I probably messed this sucker up. There we go. So you push there. Oh, you can show me. You can show me. Yeah, we got comments. It's going to this up. Thanks, Jeremy.
One minute? $20 seconds.
He's bound to die.
You're listening to the Alan Autry Show on the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX.
And welcome back to Alan Autry No Retreat, Thunderous Thursday. So happy to have you with us. Dad, come on. You know, I had some fun. Just did a guest spot on Tulsa King not too long ago. Then did a guest spot on 911 Lone Star. And it's fun doing those guest spots and being out on the set again. I'm not going to lie to you, but it's not the same. It's not the same guy that was on Heathen Night. I appreciate it. I'm thankful to have a career when most actors, you know, they wind up never having, you know, average. I think 95% of the Screen Actors Guild make less than $5,000 a year, and I feel so fortunate because let me tell you, I was not Marlon Brando. My acting skills are very limited. I know that. As Clint Eastwood said in Magnum Force, man's got to know his limitations. But I figured that out as an actor when I actually started to work. But I had a good time, but not like being here with you all. I just flat love it. It's pathetic how much I love being here. I look forward to this hour with you every day. So if you enjoy it, pass it on to folks. Tune in. Autry's Army is growing. Appreciate that. And we welcome people that disagree with me. Our good friend Laura Fisher, we disagree on things time to time, but I love Laura and Barb, Debbie, James Marples, all you guys. I'm going to get to some comments here in a little bit, but appreciate you so much. And again, we are going to get that phone line fixed. I don't have control of it. Guillermo's been everywhere. He's running so fast, he's running into himself. But he's going to be fixing that up. We'll have it soon. But on one last comment for today on the race issue, because the race issue is going to be around forever since America was founded to today, till America, I mean, forever. In a diverse society, you always have to consider it. Don't let it dominate you. But when you see a particular ethnicity or race being prejudiced against, we all have to stand up and condemn that. That's why, you know, you can only preserve a multi-racial, multi-ethnic, diverse society by doing that. You know, they don't have to do that in China. I'm sorry, I'm going to call them out. I mean, it's not a diverse society. You're Muslim and you're whatever. You're making tennis shoes in a slave camp. If you're Chinese, you're welcome. If you're Chinese, that's just. I remember Chinese Communist Party. There's no diversity there, and you can go around the country and around the world and see. But it's hard of being a diverse society. But when it works, it's beautiful. Dadgum, it's beautiful. I mean, if it's seeing different customs, you have basic values that you share: fairness, equal opportunity for all, equal access to opportunity, education, quality of life for everybody. Nobody gets stepped on because of their socioeconomic situation in life, or their skin color, or their religion. Man, that's a great foundational principle, but we got to live up to it. That's the thing, and that's a constant process. I don't believe that's ever a destination. Now, you can have those conversations without being at each other's throat. I mean, you have to with families. You have disagreements with family, but at the end of the day, you're still family. You're not trying to kill each other or silence each other. I mean, you got to listen to old dad spout out, even if you don't agree with it. As a parent, you got to listen to your kids. So when people don't, they may not agree with them, but you got to hear them out, because there's something about hearing someone out and being heard that kind of drains the anger to the level where you can get things done that benefit the whole family. And we're kind of losing that in this country. And so that's why I welcome the discussion. I welcome the diversity of opinion. But I was going to say on this about black people in general. And I'm going to bring up, I don't usually take out the big brush, but I'm going to take it out on this subject. I'm going to take the risk of saying the vast majority of black people want fairness. They want to earn what they get. They don't want to be given something, because that denotes that you're less than. If that person over there can actually do what we're competing for, they can do it better, but you're giving it to me because of my color or what have you, something I didn't earn. Nobody gets to pick their color they were born with. And they just want a fair playing field with fair referees calling the fouls. That's what government should be, a referee. And you know, the referee, I won't get deep in the weeds on this show, But it was going great after 1865 with the Reconstruction of the South for 22 years, from 1865 to 1877. The Reconstruction of the South was going great. Black people were getting educated. Black people were opening businesses. Black people were getting elected to office back in like the 1876, 77. Then Rutherford B. Hayes called it off. Job done. Well, no, the job wasn't done. And what happened is they took the word of the southern states, predominantly run by Southern Democratic Klan members, that they would preserve this Reconstruction, just turn it over to the states. So folks that are up and defending the states' rights should call everything when it comes to elections. I believe they should be the predominant voice, but they can't be the only voice. Because what happened, the federal government did give that over to the southern states. And then we had this plethora of voting rights discrimination that came out. That you got to admit that as a Republican in order to get any kind of consensus, to get any Democrats to come your way. You've got to acknowledge there's some legitimate gripes, legitimate concerns, legitimate truths that have been predominantly espoused by the left over the years that you have to consider. But my point is, Republicans, take out your arsenal, teach people the real truth. Tell them that Abraham Lincoln was a Republican, that the Republican Party was formed as an anti-slavery party, that it wasn't the Republicans that fought Lyndon Johnson on the Voting Rights Act. The Southern Democrats were against them. The Republicans came in and got it passed. This whole Republican hates black people deal was started when Nixon didn't support Martin Luther King when he went to jail, and John F. Kennedy did. Then it just flipped. And the Republicans were in a comfort zone up to then and didn't. But I'd like to put this question. Those of you who think that, if black people just see black and don't want fairness and a merit-based world, okay? Did you watch the NBA playoffs? Jeremy, did you watch the NBA playoffs at all? Okay, some of you did. The MVP of the playoffs for the Denver Nuggets, who won the national championship, was a 7-foot white dude from Serbia. You don't get any more white than a white dude from an Eastern European country. He is white, never tans, just turns that red. 7-foot, slow, big old white dude. He happened to win the MVP for the Denver Nuggets. You name me one black NBA player in the entire NBA that would not welcome Nikola Jokic on their team and would cause a fit and say, I don't want him on my team because he's white. You're not going to hear that. You're not going to hear somebody say, I don't want Luka Doncic, a white point guard that's just unbelievable, on their team. They're begging the front office, please get that white dude on. Why? Because they can play. They can help us win. And that's where a lot of people are waking up in all aspects of society, not just on the athletic field. Why? Because we live in a competitive world. Those of you who think, well, we shouldn't compete. Well, we were on the block, the only big country on the block after World War II for a long time. We didn't have to compete. But now you got a country called China that's kicking our butt competitively in just about everything. You either wake up and compete, and guess what? The so-called, they're communist in terms of keeping a slave force captive to make their products at dirt cheaply, so nobody can make it any cheaper. They force their labor to make it, so that's the communist heavy hand. When COVID comes, they make everybody go inside and starve to death if need be. They bring down the iron fist. You got your social credit card, yes, absolutely. But economically, they are as free market as they come. They're out competing, kicking every democracy's butt with their own game, with the free market system. So they're competing. We better learn to compete. And that's what the most black people want. Look, just give me a fair playing field to compete. If you make sure those rules are fair, I'm willing to accept the wins, accept the losses. Because Ben Carson says, you give me a fair playing field, I know I'm going to become a top-notch brain surgeon. And you know what? I believe in myself so much, I think I can become the top brain surgeon in the entire world. And Ben Carson overcame a lot to do that. That's why he believes in merit. But he didn't get advanced forward because, okay, you're letting me come in, get into this med school. Mr. Carson, we're letting you get in this med school. We know that your last 15 patients died because your knife slipped during brain surgery. No, he got there because he was excellent at what he did. And to say that excellence is not pervasive in the Black community, that the potential isn't as much prevalent there, that potential to be great as there is in the white community, is about the most racist statement you can make. And this woke left that institutes this kept affirmative action going, that keeps all of these kids in these schools that are not functioning. They wouldn't put up with it for 1 second if their kid was forced to be in that school. They don't have to worry about it because most of their kids are in private schools. And they, a voucher, they won't let you have school choice. It's called a voucher out here in California. Well, you can get a voucher. You can buy one. It's called a house in a affluent community of where most of the successful schools are. Yeah, you can buy a voucher. They won't make that. That's not a fair playing field. That's what the gripe should be, and what the fight is becoming in the African American community. And that's why you're seeing guys like Doris Jones, Ben Carson, Thomas Sowell, Tim Scott coming in. That's why the left is scared to death of Tim Scott. Because Tim Scott, I'm telling you, he's bringing it. He is probably, and I'm going to say right now, in my lifetime since Martin Luther King, Tim Scott, win or lose presidency, he's a long shot. But for doing what he's done, for espousing courageously, unapologetically what he believes, I think he is the most consequential political figure to come along since Martin Luther King. Now, I know that's a big thing to hang around Tim Scott's neck. And I know the first thing he'd say, because he's a humble man, to even mention Martin Luther King and me in the same breath. Don't do that, Alan. I can get you. You don't need to say that, Tim, but I sure as heck can, because I know how I felt when I heard Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech. I know how I felt when Martin Luther King was assassinated. I got scared. My heart sunk. I was fearful for this country. As it turned out, I had a right to be. And I feel the same feeling starting to come back, not of his death, Martin Luther King said, of his life, what he stood for. I have a dream speech. I'm starting to feel those same things with Tim Scott. And I just wish him, I pray for him every day. Again, win or lose, he's a long shot, but he is, again, since I can remember, since the Martin Luther King assassination, and I'll stand by it, I believe the most consequential politician that we've had. Okay. Gosh, 10 minutes. Let me go to some comments here. Hunter Biden, we may have to save the Hunter Biden till tomorrow. But I want to get to some comments here. Here we go. I don't have to, quite a few comments here. Vivian Stablefield. Vivian, how you doing? Haven't seen your name on there. Are you a new member of Autry's Army? But it says, Alan, for God's sake, we need people like you in the federal office. Well, thank you. Now, I thought we were friends, Vivian. I didn't think you would wish that on me to be in federal office in the daytime. But I humbly thank you for that. And Laura, hey, Laura. She says, but that's not the Republican Party of today. Most Dixiecrats moved to the Republican Party thanks to Nixon. Those are the facts. Well, I agree with Laura's right to say that, and she's very articulate. I know you listen, Laura, but my only edit with that would be those are the facts as you see them. I just wouldn't be so sure that every Dixiecrat moved to the Republican Party and that every member of the Republican Party is a Dixiecrat, because Tim Scott, you'd be calling Tim Scott, who's a staunch member of the Republican Party, a racist, like they tried to go after Larry Elder, the black face of white supremacy. So I know you're very emphatic on that. I respect you. That would be my only. And again, if you have a different view like Laura is not shy about expressing herself. That's why we love her. And part of your other comments says, and then came the Jim Crow laws. Well, we have, and those were awful. I don't know how to get to the other question comments. Jeremy, hold on here. Hold on. Let me see how I push that. Let me see if it gets me to see some more. Gosh, where? Hold on, folks. Okay, Laura's boy, she's fast on the computer. Says there's evidence to substantiate that Tim Scott isn't the flex you think he is. Well, I don't even know what flex means. He's using all that lingo I don't know. Jethro don't know how to decipher that, Laura. Explain to me what flex means. Jeremy, can you come in here real quick? So I'm not going to get into that Hunter Biden thing. We only got 7 minutes, and I just want to stay on the comments. It goes down to there here on this computer, and I can't get the other questions after Vivian. We got to hang in there, folks, on radio. There's the comments. Okay. You did that twice. You clicked that twice, huh? Yeah. Okay, mute. All right, hang in there, radio folks. We're working it out. We got the genius on it. We got it there? Yeah. Kevin Arnold retorts, yeah, what evidence? All right, Kevin. It's on you. Go with that, brother. James Marshall. Hey, you doing, James? You've been with me right from the get-go, man. For a long time since first show. I said, excellent show. Thank you, James. Debbie Stickler, great show as always. Thank you for all that support there. Betsy Roberts says, yes, he fully embraced that moniker. And Betsy said a lot of this stuff started in the South with Strom Thurmond. He certainly picked up the baton after the ending of Reconstruction. But that was just so sad. I mean, that's why I love people to just do some history on this. Dadgummit, they had it going with the Reconstruction after the Civil War. What a better investment of federal funds. And it was working in all aspects. The South was being reconstructed this time as a non-slave part of the United States of America with equal access to opportunity, education, quality of life for everyone, in particular black folks. And let me just say something right now. And again, I'm a registered independent, and I've talked about this before. I don't understand how, if you do a little research on what the far left liberal, not the old time liberals, but the far left liberals that are dominating the party now, stand for, as a black person, as a black family, how you can support it. Slavery, the first thing when they got off the slave ship, where you were kept unemployed, you couldn't call it employment working for the slave master. It was forced slavery. You didn't really get paid. You just got some food and clothes that they felt that you needed to keep you away from the sun so you could work harder. So you're basically unemployed. They didn't allow the slaves to get educated. That was the worst nightmare. If you didn't learn how to read or write, if you had a book, that was depending on what kind of book it was. You didn't have schools. Okay, so kept them uneducated. And my goodness, you can't put a gun in the hands of a slave to defend him or herself and their families. So you look at today, so they were left unemployed, uneducated, and unarmed. And you look today, they want to keep black people in failing schools with teachers that are subpar at best, in many cases, in urban America, and all around the country for that matter. So basically keeping you uneducated, black folk uneducated. The prospects for employment if you don't have an education are nil. So basically keeping you unemployed with public assistance, whereas if you went and got a job, you're going to make less than what we can give you by a few dollars. So you stay unemployed. And they want to repeal the Second Amendment and take away all the guns to protect you and your family in some of the most crime-ridden areas in America. Chicago, they're going to move towards gun confiscation. I got news for you. The bad guys are going to still get the guns. The families that want to protect themselves in an era of defund the police and where police are pulling back and not answering calls like they should, and you can see why they don't. I don't agree with it. But in essence, they're doing the same thing as the slave masters did, keeping black people uneducated, unemployed, and unarmed. How in the world? And you look at the Republican Party says, we want you to have school choice. Why? Because when you get through school and you get a college diploma and you're at grade level, you have an 85% chance of owning a home. That's statistics. Black, white, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. We want you to be able to protect yourself in those neighborhoods. You have a right to own a gun and protect your family against the gang members or crazy folks that just are on drugs or whatever. That party, and I'm an independent, that party believes in you being employed, educated, and protected. How in the world could you? Now, I'd say be independent. You don't have to join a party, but how can you be so blindly loyal to that party who for the last 5 decades have kept you uneducated, unemployed, and unarmed? I just don't get it. And you know what? That poll is showing that a lot of black folks are figuring this out and they've had enough. And it's a great, hey, it might be a little storm before the rainbow, a little pain before the healing, but it's something that had to come to pass if this country was going to reach its potential. Folks, that music comes. I love the song, but I hate it because it means I only got a few seconds more with you. Thank you for tuning in. God bless you. God bless America. And just remember, do your best. Let God do the rest. And it's going to turn out all right. I promise you. Bye-bye now.
Happy trail.